Hey, I'm Lorelei, registered dietitian nutritionist. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to talk about making your own plant-based milk. I realize there's about a million other videos on YouTube about how to make plant-based milk, so thank you so much for choosing to watch mine. As we get a little further in the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of using your own homemade plant-based milk versus when you buy in the store, the pros and cons, so both the benefits and the reasons why you may not want to do that. But we'll do that later. Right now, I just want to get right to how to do it. The basic formula for making kind of any plant-based milk is 1 cup of whatever you're going to make the milk out of, and then 4 cups of just plain water. Today, I'm going to make an almond oat milk. So I'm going to use half almonds and half oats because that's what I have. And that's often how I decide what I'm going to make. But you actually have a fair number of options. When I first started making plant-based milk, I made almond milk. That's what I was buying in the store, and it's actually pretty straightforward and it's pretty tasty to make your own. We'd use a cup of almonds and 4 cups of water, a dash of salt, blend it, strain it, and voila. And that's all there really is to it, no matter what you're using. I gradually started using like half and half almond and sunflower seeds because sunflower seeds are cheaper. Although making a 100% sunflower seed milk, I think would be a little bit strong because sunflower seeds actually have a pretty strong flavor. So I had kind of liked doing the half and half combo. But then people everywhere started making oat milk. Like oat milk got to be this big thing, and oat milk is super easy and oats are super cheap. So it's very easy to make your own oat milk. I will say it's not going to be exactly like the ones you buy in the store because we're only using oats and water. We're not using any other additives that help with the texture of the milk. We're not adding any flavorings or anything like that. We're just using the straight up ingredients. But it will work to make a milk if you just need something to use for baking or to pour onto cereal or to make shakes or smoothies out of. Today I'm using a half a cup of almonds. Now if you're using a hard nut-like almonds, you do need to soak them. I've soaked these overnight. If you're going to use something that's softer like cashews or sunflower seeds, you want to soak them, but you don't need to soak them for as long. I'd say maybe just a half an hour is plenty of time. I'm using steel cut oats, again, because that's what I have. I think old-fashioned rolled oats are probably the best to use for making oat milk, but you can make it out of what you've got. I have steel cut oats, so I did want to soak these because they're a little tougher than an old-fashioned rolled oat is. So I actually soaked these overnight. That was probably way more than they needed to be soaked, but that's what happened because I soaked them both at the same time. You want to drain off the soaking water for sure. So you can kind of see my almonds here. They've been soaking and that water gets a little cloudy. So you want to drain that off and rinse whatever you've got left. So I'm going to do that now. Almonds rinsed. They're going to go right into my blender. And I'm just using a regular blender. I don't have a Vitamix, and I don't think you need one for this. Of course, if you have one, you can use it. And then I'm also gonna rinse the oats. And I actually may start with the almonds and add the oats later because I don't wanna over-process the oats. I don't know whether or not this is going to be an issue with steel cut oats, but sometimes if you over process rolled oats, they get a little slimy. You know that texture that you have when oatmeal is kind of cooked and cold, that kind of congealed texture? You can get a little bit of that in your oat milk if you over blend, or at the end when you're straining, if you try to squeeze too much of the liquid out, sometimes it starts to get really slimy at the end. So anyway, but I am going to drain and rinse these, and you can see this was only a half a cup, but it is absorbed a lot of water, so it looks like way more than that now. And then we're going to add water. I sometimes also like to add a little bit of ice to the blender as I'm doing this if I want to be able to use the milk right away and I want it cold, because otherwise it's going to end up kind of room temperature, which is fine for something like baking, but if you want to pour it right away on your cereal, you might want it cold. So sometimes I'll throw a little ice in, and I won't put all of the water in at first, partly just because it will fill my blender really high, but I'll gradually add the water in. The most important part when you're blending is to get the thing that you're blending really, really well ground up. And we're gonna start with 2 cups, but I know I'll ultimately add 4. And I have a blender that can handle ice pretty well, which also means it can handle almonds pretty well. Sometimes I think this probably makes no sense. When I add ice, when I'm trying to really blend up another hard ingredient, sometimes I think it does a better job with the other ingredient because it also has the challenge of the ice. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm gonna get my other 2 cups set up. The explanation of this is really should not be taking this long. Let's just blend. Blend, blend, blend. Okay, and then I'm gonna throw in the oats now that the almonds are mostly ground. You do wanna let it go for long enough that everything really is getting well ground. Oats and almonds. And I'm gonna add a dash of salt. This is optional, but I'm adding it. Okay, sometimes I'll actually leave a little bit of the water at the end to kind of clear the blender after I've poured most of the oat milk out. I'm gonna go ahead and strain what I've got here. It's kind of gotten a little frothy, but it's definitely very well blended. This is a nut milk bag. It's really fine weave mesh. You can also use like cheesecloth, but you'd kind of need to use multiple layers because you don't really want the bits seeping through the holes. These aren't very expensive. You can find them online for not too much. Mine has definitely gotten some use, so it's been worth it for me to have it. And I'm just pouring, this is the pitcher I'm gonna store it in, so I'm just pouring right in here. Like there's stuff still kind of in here, so that's kind of where I'll sometimes use the remaining water, is just to kind of clear out the blender, and then I'll pour that in at the very end too. All right. And then you just squeeze. This is kind of the milking. So it ends up being this nut milk bag feels kind of like a big udder, and you just want to get the liquid out. If you are working with nuts and seeds, you really want to try to get as much liquid out as you possibly can, so it ends up with the pulp being pretty dry. With oats, as I mentioned, sometimes as you start to get to the end, you'll feel like the liquid that's starting to get extruded is a little slimy, and that probably is an indicator that you want to just stop at that point, because you don't want your nut milk or your plant milk to actually be slimy tasting. You want it to just be nice and liquidy. This sometimes just takes a little time. Like you don't want to just squeeze because it will go in all directions. You want it to concentrate getting it squeezed into your actual pitcher. I will make my own plant-based milk if I run out of store-bought plant-based milk and I have some ingredients to make it. So that's one reason why you could go ahead and make your own plant-based milk. Cost. When you're talking about things like oats, oh my gosh, store-bought oat milk is so much more expensive than just making it yourself. Oats are really, really cheap, and obviously water, it just comes out of your tap. When it comes to things like almond milk, almonds actually are not super cheap, and almond milks that you can buy in the store have gotten cheaper. So it's hard to say whether or not making your own almond milk is actually cheaper than buying store-bought almond milk, but it's probably pretty equivalent. Taste. I actually really love the taste of homemade plant-based milks better than the taste of store-bought. They taste fresher and they often taste more like the ingredients. The store-bought almond milk, it's fine. I don't mind the taste, but it doesn't taste like almond to me. Whereas when I make my own plant-based milk, the flavor is subtle and mild, but it does have an almond flavor to it, and I really enjoy that. Some reasons why you might choose not to make your own plant-based milk, well, just convenience. So that's just the first thing that comes to mind is convenience. I guess one of the other upsides of making your own plant-based milk is that you're only getting the ingredients you put in, which include, like I said, here we've got almonds and oats and water, and that's it. So there aren't any additives or preservatives or additional ingredients that maybe you don't want. But some of those additional ingredients that you find in store-bought plant-based milks do have some benefits. For example, almost every store-bought plant-based milk is fortified with calcium, and most of them with vitamin D as well. And those are harder ingredients to get into your diet, especially if you are leading a plant-based lifestyle. Almonds do have some calcium in them. They have about 80 milligrams per quarter cup, according to the bag of almonds that I used for this project, which means if you were making almond milk with a cup of almonds, you would end up with about 320 milligrams of calcium in your whole batch of almond milk, which is going to be about 4 cups. Whereas if you buy a store-bought plant-based milk, you get 390 milligrams of calcium in one serving, in 1 cup. So you're going to get 4 times as much calcium in this as you would get in your own homemade plant-based milk. You're obviously still getting some calcium from your own plant-based milk, but most people need about 1,000 milligrams of calcium a day. Children and older adults need more. If you're getting 1 serving of your own homemade almond milk with only 80 milligrams of calcium in it, you just have a much longer way to go to actually meet that requirement for the day. Whereas if you're getting it from a glass of almond milk that comes from the store, you are already about a third of the way there. Vitamin D is another one that can be in those. Although this kind of plant-based milk is really, it's nice, and I always think of it kind of almost like a treat. On a more regular basis, I think it is good to make sure that you're finding at least some way in your diet to get some of those nutrients, specifically calcium and vitamin D, and store-bought plant-based milk is actually a good way to do that. The other thing is just shelf life. It says use within 7 to 10 days of opening, but I find that it often keeps longer than that. And if you make your own, it's not gonna last that long. So I don't think it will last a week. Generally, these last maybe about 5 days or so. Now, I think I've gotten most of the liquid squeezed out. This isn't coming out too slimy, so I do think that the steel cut oats probably act a little bit differently than rolled oats, but we do have a fair amount of pulp left. It does feel like a lot of waste. So this can be used for some things. It's very, very high in fiber. That's mostly what is left, is the fiber here. You can use it in something like veggie burgers, and I'll probably have a video later showing how you can do that. And there are other recipes as well using this, but there's probably not a lot of flavor here, and the texture might be a little mealy. You probably just wouldn't want to just eat it with a spoon. It's probably not super good. But it is usable. On the other hand, if you end up throwing it away, you might still feel like it was worth what you put into the almond milk, oat almond milk. And we're gonna taste it. I'm gonna wash my hands because they're kind of gross from squeezing. I don't tend to add sweeteners to my plant-based milk. I tend to not buy them sweetened either. You can though, some people will add dates or even like something like maple syrup. So if that's something that's important to you to sweeten it, yeah, you can do it. If you were adding dates, you would just put the dates in at the same time you put the other things, and then you could just strain it when you strain everything else. I think some people add flavorings to theirs as well. So there definitely are options. You can make plant-based milk out of a lot of different things. The formula is basically the same. But yes, you can. Some good reasons to do it, some reasons you might not want to, but you make the choice. Let's go ahead and taste this. I don't usually just drink a glass of milk. I really haven't done that since I was a child. But why not? Let's see. Yeah, it's nice. It's mild, and obviously it's not at all sweet, but you can taste both the oats and the almonds. It tastes fresh and it tastes like real ingredients, so enjoy. Woohoo! Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.